Welcome to Under the Shell, presented by Terrapin Sports Central. This week, we talk to a top 20 projected pick in the MLB draft and a man who's had an incredible past 7 days, Matt Shaw. And as always, we preview the upcoming games for Maryland. I'm Brendan Weissel.
Sam Jane.
Michael Big Mike Howes.
All right, let's get into it.
Our next guest is the star shortstop from Maryland baseball. He is coming off winning the Big Ten Player of the Week honors, with his play earning the Terps a weekend series win over then number 22 Iowa, featuring a go-ahead grand slam in the first game. He's the 2022 Cape Cod Summer Player of the Year. He earned first-team Big Ten honors last year and was on the Big Ten All-Freshman team his freshman year. We are honored to finally have on Matt Shaw. Matt, how do you feel like you're playing this year, and how's the season going for you guys so far?
Yeah, season's going good. I feel like I'm playing good, but as a squad, I think we're kind of headed in the right direction. We've had some ups and downs so far this season, and I feel like that just kind of happens sometimes. Especially with playing baseball, one of those sports where really anything can happen. So, the ups and downs are kind of a good experience for us, learning how to win, learning a little bit how to lose, how to play from behind. So, all in all, I think we're kind of headed in the right direction.
Do you kind of feel like this season you guys have had like a target on your back, winning the Big Ten last year, and now you guys are like no longer the hunted? I mean, you're no longer like the hunters, you're the hunted now.
Honestly, I really don't know. Going into the year, you play a bunch of good teams. Like we're playing, number at the time it was like number 5 Ole Miss and number 7 Vanderbilt. Teams that are the top teams in the country. So, having the schedule that we had, it's not necessarily that either team is the hunted or the hunter. We kind of go in there and we're both just trying to win a baseball game. And the same thing in the Big Ten, and playing baseball, anybody can beat anybody. So, we're looking forward to this weekend against Rutgers. And in general, I think, we have a lot to learn, a lot to work towards, but, it's gone pretty well thus far.
If you look back kind of personally for yourself, maybe a few years just ago, obviously grew up playing baseball in Massachusetts. So what ended up drawing you to come to the University of Maryland?
Yeah, Maryland was one of the schools that offered me and seemed pretty interested in me. So, it was something that ended up just kind of working out that way. I never really knew much about Maryland before, but once I started kind of getting contact and learn about the coaches and kind of figure all that stuff out, it ended up being a perfect fit.
Do you remember what the pitch to you was to come to Maryland? Like, what was that official visit like coming down?
Uh, that's a good question. I mean, they're all pretty similar. I think the big pull for Maryland is that they have a really great coaching staff. A lot of young coaches, guys that know what they're doing. Great hitting coach and Matt Swope, good head coach and Rob Vaughn. Anthony Papio, just a great assistant who, basically a jack of all trades, does everything right. And then, we've had a new pitching coach who does a great job too. But, all in all, it was more, playing in a good conference and coming a little bit down south for me.
This season, there's obviously been a lot of MLB scouts in the stands. So what's kind of that mentality like, trying to stay focused on playing Maryland baseball while knowing there's a future ahead for you in the major leagues?
Yeah, that's something that doesn't really bother me. Scouts have been at plenty of games before. We had a lot of good prospects last year, the year before with Sean Burke, and we've had guys in and out. So they've always been there, and it's never really bothered me. It's the same game, and baseball is one of those games where you're going to fail and you're going to do, be successful too. So, if you don't realize that there's going to be plenty of failure that comes along with it, then, you're not going to have very much fun playing baseball. So it's something that you just kind of got to let go of and have fun.
Kind of what has that draft process been like so far to you? Do you have an agent? Are you talking to teams yet? Are you not allowed to? Kind of like, what's the timeline on all of that?
Yeah, I do have an agent. I've had them for about a year. And when it comes to talking to scouts, we have like the winter meetings, which is preseason. So stuff in the winter, and, you meet with most of the teams. So I was able to meet with all the teams and have the conversations, and they're just trying to get to know me, talk a little bit about the organization, but, their job is to get to know me as a person and kind of what drives me, and see if, if all works out, that I'm a person that they want to pick for their team.
I know that one of the things that a lot of scouts are looking at you right now about is your defensive ability, how you play at shortstop. We talked to Coach Vaughn one time at the media availabilities, and he told a story about how you came in your freshman year and you started at third base, but he said that he thought you were trying to set the record for the most errors at third base. Then you moved to left field, and then you kind of ended the year at second base. And then after that season, you said you wanted to play shortstop. Kind of what was that mentality like after kind of an up and down freshman season to then say, I want to play the hardest position on defense, want to play at shortstop? And what did you do to prepare yourself when you eventually did win that role?
Yeah, defensively coming into college, like you're gonna have to just get a ton of reps at first. And that's what I did. I got a ton of reps. My sophomore year fall, I was at the field every day, at like 10 o'clock, just repping out ground balls. And, I knew that eventually I could earn the position. Kind of like anything else. If, you put enough effort into it, you'll earn it. I ended up earning that position, and, I had a good defensive year at short last year. But then coming into this fall again, it was like, that was my main focus, was to get better defensively. And so at this point, playing shortstop, I feel very comfortable there. Very focused and kind of really excited to be able to play the position. I think it's a great position. I love playing there. And I had no doubts that I was eventually going to play there, but I knew, it was going to take a lot of work. There was a lot of things that were going on behind the scenes to kind of eventually be able to play that position.
Can you open up a little bit about like what was behind the scenes to get to that position?
Yeah, I mean it's nothing too exciting. It's just like, basically every day I'd go to the field around 10 and field for an hour, and then, eventually in practice I'd field again, obviously. Would do a mobility routine every morning, and then before practice for my arm to get my arm strength better, a little more mobile. There's a lot that kind of went into it. Working closely with Tommy Gardner, who I played with my freshman year, who's now our infield coach, and he's fantastic. So, working with him, every day, and just kind of repping out ground balls, repping out different plays, seeing, being able to read different hops, different balls off the bat. And, it took a ton of time. It took a lot of reps. It was honestly pretty exhausting at times, but, in the end, I really wanted to play shortstop and it ended up working out.
I was doing a little bit of just looking online quickly, and it appeared to me that you don't have much of a social media presence. Is that true? Is it all private? What's the story of that? And
yeah, no, I don't really have any social media presence at all. I don't have Instagram or Twitter. I might have a Twitter, but I don't know if I do. I think I had to make one long ago, so you might be able to find a Twitter somewhere. But no, I'm not really interested in the social media stuff. For some guys, it's cool. It's something that you can do to kind of build your brand or whatever. Just something that I don't really have any interest in. And, I think for 99% of players, it does more harm than good anyways. I think social media can be kind of a negative thing. So, just kind of getting off it, moving away from it. It really wasn't like, it was kind of just one day I was like, you know what, I'm kind of done with it. And, never looked back. And I'm really glad that I walked away from it because, I really have no desire at all to, get a social media again at any point in my life. So, I'm just kind of, I guess, living how they lived 15 years ago. I mean, it wasn't that long ago when no one had social media. So, you know.
yeah, I mean, the reason I bring it up is now, with so many more players just being able to use their social media accounts for kind of NIL deals. I was wondering if you thought about that at all and what other kind of your thoughts on NIL are, because I was noticing you don't have any social media accounts.
Yeah, the NIL stuff is cool. I mean, we have guys in our team who are making like $100 here and there, which is definitely awesome. But I think in general, like there's some big names in college sports that are going to be making like millions of dollars with NIL. For them, like that's huge. That's a lot of money. For me to, just go and make $100 here and there and to have an Instagram that I don't think it would really benefit me otherwise, it just doesn't seem worth it. But for some people it is, and obviously like it's a different mindset if you want Instagram, and there's a lot of benefits and stuff, and it's cool to have. But just for me, I'm really not interested.
Matt, I'm just wondering for you, obviously, you're in a different sport, the MLB, where it's kind of a different type of draft, that type of thing. You can kind of head back to school if you think that, the money won't be worth it. Is it kind of like the Moneyball scenes when teams come to your door and you kind of have to parse through how do you make those decisions about going to the draft versus staying in college, that type of thing?
Yeah, decisions like that honestly are easier. They're easier if you play better because, the better you play, the more money you're going to get. And, for you to come back to college thinking you're going to make more money nowadays is really, it's kind of a hairy thing to do because, once you come back to college, you really lose all of your negotiating ability because at that point, if you're a senior, you don't really have anywhere else to go. So at that point, the chances of you making more money, like for, the top of the top, I guess it might make sense. But realistically, getting drafted your junior year as young as possible, because that's when you have the most negotiating powers. So, you're going to want to get drafted. You're going to want to go your junior year or, your senior year of high school, whenever you can, really. Um, so I mean, I guess you don't want to lay your cards on the table and say that necessarily, it's I'm going to get drafted and then you're losing that negotiating power to come back. But I guess in the end, the dream is go play Major League Baseball as quickly as possible. So, I'm okay with not sticking around here at College Park.
Have you made that decision
decision?
official so far?
Say that again. It was a little bit.
Yeah. Have you made that official so far that you're not going to return?
That's something that in baseball you don't have to do. I mean, you simply can just if they pick you, you go, and if they don't, you don't. And it's not like football or anything where I have to declare. I don't have to declare anything like that. And I guess I don't have to tell the major league teams anything, and I guess that gives me more negotiating power. So make sure you guys don't send us any major league teams, or you're gonna get me in trouble. But no, you don't have to declare anything like that. So it's really not like a thought. Like no one's like, oh, I'm gonna go or I'm not gonna go. It's like, hey man, you get picked. Probably gonna want to go. So.
Kind of switching up the topics now. I saw when you hit that grand slam against Iowa, you kind of tossed your bat a little bit. And I remember early on in the season against Ole Miss, there was a little controversy when TJ McCants hit that deep home run and your catcher Schlager had some words for him after he watched it a little bit. Kind of what is your stance on like there being unwritten rules of baseball with like, are you allowed to celebrate? How long are you allowed to celebrate?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's things that you do, and if they're disrespectful, you're gonna get repercussions. But at the end of the day, you just kind of accept it for what it is. Like you take the McCann back bat flip, and our catcher got in his face. He said run, and eventually later on in the game, McCann came up to me and was like, I'm not usually like that, whatever, whatever. And he didn't blame Luke for getting up in his face. So like that's just kind of how it goes. Like if you're gonna be disrespectful and have like a crazy bat flip and they get up in your face, it's like, okay, you deserve it, but like no one at the end of the day is mad at either side. Like both sides just treated it how, they treated it. I'm not a big bat flip guy. I don't think mine was really egregious by any means. I honestly didn't even mean to bat flip. So I wasn't surprised that no one made a big deal about it.
And to close off this interview, with every guest, we do a rapid fire segment where we ask a quick question, and we get your best response from it. So to start it off, what is your favorite post game snack?
We have these little cherry juices. They're good for recovery, so I'll go with the cherry juice.
What is your least favorite food item?
Least favorite food item? We got gyros or euros, whatever you want to call them. From where we get them from Marathon, and that was not a good pregame meal, so I didn't eat that one.
How often you guys get that for pregame meals? Was it just like a one-time thing?
That was a one-time thing. That just happened to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't eat that.
What is your favorite Big Ten team to beat?
To beat this year, Iowa, because they're good. I like beating.
The best ballpark you've played in?
Ole Miss was pretty cool. Ole Miss was cool. Probably up there. Ole Miss, yeah, I'll go with Ole Miss.
Best walk-up song on the team. Now I know you switched your walk-up song pretty recently to Bad to the Bone. Am I correct?
I have batted the ball, but I still have Magic Stick, which is the OG walk-up song for me. So I still got
which one do you think is the best on the team?
best on the team. My walk-up song, batting the
Your
ball.
walk-up? Which is the worst on the team?
Worst on the team. There's some. I don't know the name of them or who it is, but I'm listening to them like, this nice.
Your favorite home run that you've ever hit?
Favorite home run? Honestly, Iowa. That's probably my favorite home run.
And then I don't know if you can answer this one, but the MLB team you would most want to get drafted to?
Probably the Red Sox. I mean, they're my favorite team and a hometown team, and might as well choose your hometown team, right?
I'm from Newton, Massachusetts, so I would also love to see that.
Let's go. Represent.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate our time, and that's all we got. So have a good one. Let's get into it. Mike, you've been covering baseball. What has Matt Shaw done in the past week?
This past week, his play earned him Big Ten Player of the Week. He batted .533 the past week with 8 hits, 2 home runs, and 16 RBIs, and led the Terps to a weekend series win over then number 22 Iowa. This is a team that is clicking now. We talked about their rough start early on in the season where the pitching was struggling. They got off to 4-7 start. But since that rough start, they're now 13-3. Sam, kind of what have you seen from this team that you think's kind of flipped that switch?
Well, really, I just think the offense has started to get going. I mean, we've talked about the pitching struggles, and it's not like that really didn't really cure this past week in Iowa City, but this offense is really just starting to, like you said, fire on all cylinders. I mean, you look at Matt Shaw, kind of started the year off slow. I know he was batting like .012 after the UCF series and like in that little gap there. And I mean, the guy's starting to look like the player that we all thought. I mean, this guy, he hit just an absolute moonshot. In that grand slam.
Over
I mean, he
500
saw
yards.
It would have been in the dining hall, basically.
500 feet.
Yeah, 500 yards. That would have been a very, very long way. But yeah, Shaw is really starting to figure it out. I mean, the guy's got power. Then you're also not able to pitch around him if you're a pitcher, right? Because Nick Schleiger, LaRusso, those guys, those are like key bats in this lineup that have really started to piece it together and are, getting Shaw the ability to hit fastballs because pitchers know they can't just, walk Shaw because, we have an easy hitter up ahead of him or behind him. That's, LaRusso, who's been one of the Big Ten's best hitters, Mike. So I think that offense is really starting to play. And that was a big weekend beating Iowa because it kind of gave them some Big Ten momentum and really started to propel them towards the top of the standings. What do you think they need to do to continue that this week in a big home series here in College Park?
So they have it's going to be a tough game. So we're recording Tuesday. Tonight they are playing against William and Mary. That's going to be their toughest opponent this whole week because they're playing the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, who are 14-13 right now in their weekend series. So the biggest test is Tuesday night, and then let's say you got 4 games, you go 3-1, then you're looking at being 20-11. That's a pretty good start after being 4-7.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this team, when you got off to that start, you started thinking, man, can they even make the tournament? And now you're looking at potentially a Big Ten title for the second straight year. That's a huge testament to Vaughn and his coaching staff that they've really started to kind of figure it out and move along here in kind of the dog days of the season.
Yeah, no, the baseball team talking about at the beginning of the season was, if they can figure out what they had to do, they were going to make the tournament. And I know that they talked a lot about they can make mistakes now, and if they are successful in the end, that's all that matters.
Yeah, definitely be. I mean, I think that baseball's a long game. You kind of go through the ups and downs of the season. We're seeing that, and we're seeing that with the softball team as well.
Tell us about that, Sam.
Yeah, big series sweep against Michigan State. They kind of made light work of the Spartans, really dominated them from the jump. And I think that was kind of the biggest difference was that they got off early to good starts. They got swept in Bloomington by Indiana the past weekend. In each game, they were trailing by 4 or 5 runs before the game even got into the middle innings. This time, they were out early. Jaden McFarland had a big weekend. Courtney Weish continues to be Big Ten Pitcher of the Year caliber. And I think that they've really just started to piece it together. Mark Montgomery's squad off to the best program start in a really long time. So I think that they're playing well. They're starting to find their groove. And they have a series against Rutgers here coming up who's decent, but I could see Maryland taking 2 of 3, which would be huge. And Again, you don't want the program curse from one podcast member. That's usually a different guy. We saw that this past week, Brendan. Men's lax. The B-Wizzy curse struck yet again.
It's unfortunate. I hate to do it, but I had said that Maryland men's nor women's had ever lost to a Michigan lacrosse team, and the men lost to Michigan in a pretty ugly game. They let up 6 goals in the first quarter. They battled back in the second. They just could never really recover. And it's the games they've lost, we've seen that very similar pattern. The loss to Loyola. I mean, the Notre Dame loss, they were in it the whole game, made it to overtime. But the Loyola loss came out slow, let up goals, and not a team that's good at playing from behind. And I think that is what will eventually be their demise in a tournament game.
What do you think about the face-offs? That was kind of the big theme I thought, in the game against Michigan. They were getting constantly just worked on the face-offs. How big of a stress does that place on your defense, do you think, Brendan?
I know we've talked about how good the goalkeeping has been after McNaney went out.
A dog.
But you'd prefer that your defense or your entire team doesn't have to face that many shots.
Right.
I think he faced 29 shots. I think he saved 13 of them, and that's it's not above 500. It's a fine save percentage, but you have to face 29 shots. I mean, against a Big Ten caliber team,
it's tiring too.
It's just like you lose possession is so incredibly important just for the fact that you don't have to see as many shots, you don't have to play as much defense. You have that much zone time, it's going to be a tough game, and that's really what we saw happen.
Yeah, I think that Michigan just kind of continuously put pressure on Rupel, and eventually the dam's going to break, right? You can't always expect a performance like what he had again in that incredible goal-saving display against Virginia.
I mean, you just can't.
So you can't rely on that constantly. So that's a really tough loss to take.
It's odd. I mean, Michigan's an up-and-coming program, but it is weird to see a team play so strong in some games and then come back at home and beat Virginia on the road.
Right.
Come back at home and lose to Michigan. Although Michigan was playing with so much energy. You saw start of the game and the start of the half, both times they just were coming firing.
Yeah.
They really wanted to win. Anytime
Maryland's on the map.
Of course, anytime you go into a place where you literally never won a game, you're fired up because you have a chance to kind of make your whole season off of one game.
I mean, Maryland's the hunted, not the hunters, so I think that's something they got to learn to deal with, and obviously they have. Yeah,
past, but
this year it seems like kind of maybe they're
worst start since 2012. It's really not what you're going for, but it is what it is. A team also on the same field who's trending in a little bit of the opposite direction, the women's lacrosse team. They've been playing incredibly. I think personally they played their best game of the season against Michigan on Sunday.
Check out Brennan's Gamer.
Thank you. I just appreciate that.
Elite.
Both lacrosse teams are facing off against Ohio State this weekend. Once again, 2 tough matchups, but I do think, I said this last week and I was wrong, I do think it'll be 2 wins for Maryland unless we see exactly what happened against the Michigan game for the men. But the women, I expect to keep rolling. Libby May has had 11 goals in the past 2 games, just absolutely on fire. Michigan had been averaging 12 goals. Maryland held them to 7. I mean, they just look so strong. I don't know if either of you guys caught a bit of that game, but they've looked incredible. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I saw your recap, and Mike, I think that we've seen this Maryland team. They are breaking in a bunch of new faces. We constantly talk about that. I know that Kathy Reese has talked about wanting to have a balanced attack. When I read stuff, it's always about that team. It's always about how, we have a couple of elite players. Corey Edmondson, people around the program are already calling her the best player on the team, which is crazy as a freshman for such a, highly touted program and coach. But they really want that balanced attack, Mike, and I think they're really starting to find it now in terms of, other people are starting to facilitate and score some more goals. How do you see that as kind of maybe paying off later in the season when teams maybe start to pick up on Edmonton's traits, and now you have, different players, Libby May, maybe starting to step up as that kind of second go-to scorer, that type of thing?
I mean, yeah, you have 8 different players on the roster right now with double-digit goals. That definitely helps because then the defense, they can try to just centralize and focus on one offensive player, but then that allows all the other offensive players to get their own opportunities and score as well.
I was going to make a very simple point. The team offensively has been so well-rounded the past 2 weeks that they're very hard to stop, and I don't see them losing a game for a long time.
Really? You think that this is something that they can string together? And what does a Big Ten title look like for this team be? Like, what does that do for the program? How likely is it? What do you see in terms of, maybe them starting to piece together a potential title run that could, maybe get them back into that national title conversation that, every program's striving for, but especially the lacrosse programs here at Maryland?
I mean, 10th team in the country, you kind of, coming into the season, you really, you look at Maryland women's lacrosse, you expect them to at least win a conference championship every year. I mean,
which is wild to say.
Of course it is. I mean, it's a bit unrealistic, but it's what you expect, right?
Right.
Big Ten is strong, but you really do expect Maryland to be in that championship game, or if not win it. NCAA tournament, I would say same thing. I mean, it's very similar. We talk about the field hockey team, like Final Four and championship or bust. Really, it's they had the 50th anniversary, celebration. Thank you, on Sunday, and it was just, I mean, championship after championship after record after player with.
They play those pregame hype videos, and
it's like crazy. It's like
natties all over the place. It's wild.
It's like they start that video. It's like Maryland's known for X, Y, and Z and women's lacrosse championships. It's like.
Yeah,
and I think that's the standard, and I think that Kathy Reese has upheld that standard, and this team is coming together very nicely. And Johns Hopkins, Ohio State, Penn State, Northwestern, all 4 good teams. Northwestern 5th team in the country. That'll be a test, but I think they're going to get it done.
Yeah, I think that's what you're shooting for, and this is a program with rich history that has no problem beating the big time teams and programs that really push you over that hump. That's something another program's trying to get to do, and that's the football team. Obviously, they're in the offseason, but we know Coach Loxley's team is always at the top of our mind here as Terps fans, and they had a big offseason, big couple weeks, brought in some new assistant coaches, Kevin Sumlin, Josh Gaddis, Latrell Scott, and Zach Spavital, all new additions to Mike Loxley's staff. Mike, I think the big thing from these additions is, and you kind of see a theme, is they all have some serious experience in pretty prestigious places. Sumlin obviously was the head coach at Texas A&M when Johnny Manziel was there, and they were on just an absolute roll. Josh Gaddis won the assistant coach of the year at Michigan, worked with Jim Harbaugh, coached at Alabama and Penn State as well. So these are guys that have really got some serious chops when it comes to their resume. How do you think these new faces and new voices might mend into the Maryland team in this upcoming season, where Maryland's looking to make a jump? You bring back a lot of starters, that type of thing. These new cooks in the kitchen, how do you see that working out?
It reminds me a lot of when Loxley came in, and he just got off the coaching staff of Nick Saban. Now, these guys have a ton of experience. They're coming into an offensive room with a lot of experience as well. You're coming in with Tagovailoa in his last and final year. Is that correct? This is his last year. Same with Jay Sean Jones coming back. So when you have all these experienced pieces together, hopefully that gives you, a deeper run into postseason play. Hopefully that experience helps you in the long term with, these experienced pieces on offense.
Yeah, I think that, Brendan, that's 2 ones that I think that are the main that are going to get the pub is Sumlin and Gaddis.
I mean, those are household names.
Yeah,
maybe not a household name, but if you follow college football,
if you told people 10 years ago that Kevin Sumlin would be coming off an XFL head coaching stint and be the associate head coach at Maryland, people would be like, "You're on serious drugs."
Yeah, I agree.
So I think that bringing him in. And I think that there are parallels to be drawn between Johnny Football and Talia. I mean, they're not obviously the same caliber of player, but both are smaller, both like to dance around in the pocket and try to extend plays.
Talia doesn't have as much clout, but yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't have that. Although, who do you think's making more money? Talia now legally with NIL or Johnny Football back in the day?
Johnny Manziel was making big.
That's an incredible question, Sam.
Yeah, Johnny Football was pulling in big racks. I mean, the guy literally made the money sign against Rice, which is still one of the most elite celebrations you'll ever find. But I think that those two kind of are going to get the household name. And I think that the interesting thing, too, to look at is this is an offense that Loxley said at his press conference, it's not going to change based on what new coaches are brought in. They're going to kind of fit to what the system is. Do you guys like that idea? Do you like coaches maybe coming in and having some individuality with how they run their system at Maryland? Or do you kind of like how everything is fit under the Loxley offensive system, that type of thing? I want to hear your guys' thoughts.
That is a tough one, because when you bring in a new coach, you kind of hope that as the coach, of course you want to adapt to what's going on in the program, but you'd always kind of love to bring your own thing. And so I think that's something we're going to have to see how it plays out. I don't know too many other instances of how that usually works, but you have a program that all the players know here, so I understand that, but you bring in a whole new head coach, it could kind of damper their spirits from the start.
You hear a lot about different coaches having their own philosophies, and sometimes that tremendously helps with a player's development. So especially since now, I talked about the experienced pieces on offense, there's also going to be, they're losing Rakim Jarrett, they're losing Dante Demas, they're losing Jacob Copeland. these young guys who are going to be having to take a bigger role, hopefully maybe that helps with their development as well, you know?
Yeah, and I think to Brendan's point, too, about coaches coming in, I think that's super smart is that you kind of want to mix it, I think. I think you always want to have, like, core staples of what your team does well, but I think you got to have each coach bring a little bit of individuality and flair to what they want to do. So I think that's a balance they're going to have to strike up when it comes to this upcoming year, and it's going to be really interesting to watch with all the new faces pacing the sidelines at CQ Stadium. Football's in the off season. Other sports are in the off season. Some quick hitters before we get into our final two segments. Mike Jones brought in as the assistant coach. DeMatha, some quick thoughts on that hire, and maybe a potential guest in the future here as we start to look at under the shell plans.
I find this is a direct move to replace Tony Skinn. A lot of people know Tony Skinn had a lot of connections
George
in the
Mason,
area.
head coach now.
He had a ton of connections in the area, helped a lot with recruiting. Mike Jones, kind of the same thing. Coach at DeMatha, a lot of connections
Might be an
within
upgrade.
this DMV area. Coach some notable players. Coach Jameer Young at DeMatha. Coach somebody a lot of
Wait,
people.
isn't he on the Maryland team?
He is, and there's another person in the transfer portal right now, really notable, Hunter Dickinson. Maybe that's a move to maybe try to
Sounding like Brian Windhorse right now with
I
the
mean-
chat. People around the league were thinking, what does that mean?
I don't know if you guys think there's any correlation within that, but I definitely think it could be a piece used to like reel
Entice
in,
Dickinson.
Yeah.
I don't know. Dickinson seems unlikely to me, especially just with how good Juju was this past year
and the
how-
Big Ten.
Yeah, and how much hate Maryland fans have for Hunter, but
But I
don't
mean,
know.
all that hate can go away once.
once he
think-
commits, once he throws on the Terp jersey.
I think
yeah.
they would welcome him with open arms.
Oh no, they totally would, but I just doubt it happens. Like I'd put it less. I think it's more likely
It's a
he
mental
goes
thing,
to,
honestly.
Yeah.
But if you move Juju to the 4th spot, you got a starting lineup of Jameer Young, Deshaun Harris-Smith, Jamie Kaiser, Juju, and Hunter Dickinson.
And Donta Scott.
I don't
Who's
think he's
not
returning.
coming
I don't
back,
think he's
but
coming
that's
back.
fine.
But
Yeah, I think that's an interesting hire,
just saying.
and I think it's an upgrade from Tony Skinn. Obviously, honestly, DeMatha ties. I think DeMatha produces some of the most elite players. We saw Jordan Hawkins for UConn, who's from Gaithersburg, literally like 20 minutes from UMD, and Maryland obviously couldn't get him in, and then the next thing you know, he's dropping threes in the Natty. So that'll help with recruiting.
it is strange how Maryland, there's so many high-level athletic high schools in the area, and Maryland never really brought in those guys other than Cowan in the past few years.
and you talked about it in swimming too. None of those people come to Maryland.
Yeah, I think that's a Turgeon thing, and it's clear that Willard's trying to do his best to add on to that. Another quick hitter, just looking at when Maryland's the basketball practice facility going to be coming in soon, so that's another thing. Potentially going to dive into that, maybe a little bit of why Maryland men's didn't have and women's didn't have their own practice facility. Potential future in-depth
And then
episode.
even more under, possibly talk to a manager on the basketball team.
Yeah,
See what that's like.
See what that's. So a lot of cool episode plans in the future, but we're on the current plan, and what we all know is our top 5 drafts. This week,
They've become iconic. Have you seen the Twitter impressions? I mean, it's just incredible.
yeah, this week, big time draft. Something that's really interesting and unique. What we're going to do is a top 5 Maryland, not the University of Maryland, making that clear. We're going to state, the Great Crab State of Maryland. We are going to be selecting from the colleges that subside in Maryland. I wanted to include Georgetown, but I was struck down like lightning by the rest of the committee
Like
here.
the Lehman Lightning, which I included in a few drafts ago.
So you are going to get a logo, a jersey, a coach, a player, and a stadium. The rules are if somebody takes a pick in the category from one school, say Mike takes, Kevin Willard, me and Brendan cannot take Brenda Fries, Mike Loxley, that type of thing. You are only allowed one school per category. This is going to be very interesting. The order will be Mike, Sam, then Brendan. We will start it off with Big Mike, who will be getting the 1-1. Mike, what are you going to take in our inaugural draft?
The Navy football uniforms.
Ooh, and now
Yeah.
clarify
Now,
which ones
these
they
are the 2021 Navy Army
They will be on the
Fly
graphic.
Navy uniforms. These,
Talk about the colors, Mike.
These are some beautiful uniforms.
Mike, I can't believe you did that because there's a Navy uniform that is better.
The
Hey,
NASA,
NASA
one.
uniform?
You think
Oh
the
my
NASA
God,
one is
Mike.
better?
Are you
Let him
kidding?
make his pick, Brendan.
It was either between the NASA one or the blue one, but I don't know. The blue colors, I mean, you got the star on the side, you got the white and red stripes, you got the blue base color. I mean, it's just beautiful. Plus the gray helmet. Yeah, I think this is probably the best uniform in the entire draft.
Yeah, I think it's a really strong pick. I think that when you look at those unis, you kind of just are like, Navy always does it good with the uniforms, and that's a good pick. All right, I'm up. This is a very it's a tough spot to be in because the 2 pick I don't love where that is, but I am gonna get someone who is a legend in the industry, someone who's really started to put it together in terms of their kind of rep as a Maryland collegiate coach. And for me, I will be taking the legend herself, Brenda Fries, with my 2nd overall pick. She has won a national title. She recently brought Maryland to the Elite Eight. I think that she's probably the best coach of the big revenue sports, and I think that does play a role. So I will be taking Brenda Fries with my selection.
So now no more Maryland coaches can be picked, correct?
Correct.
I thought there was a better coach on the board from
Kathy
Maryland.
Reese is a much better coach.
I was going to say Missy Maharg.
Yeah.
7 national titles.
That's fine.
It's
preference. It's who I covered. I know
it's
Brenda.
Absolutely up to it's up.
Yeah.
And I just think Brenda. I think that what will happen is on the graphic, people are not really going to know who Missy Maharg is.
Right.
No offense to Missy, she's an elite coach.
Oh, I don't play for the graphic.
I know you don't, buddy. So give us your pick, Brendan. With your 3rd overall selection here, you get the old wraparound. So give us the 2.
I think jersey, while it's still available, I'll go Maryland script.
Ooh, good one. So
Strong
the Maryland scripts. For which colors are you doing? For the red ones, correct?
The red Maryland script.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's taken, so yeah.
Those are good picks.
And then for stadium, I will go with maybe one that people wouldn't suspect, but I'm going to go with Ludwig.
Wow, he's going back-to-back Maryland?
Because of sports at Maryland that get the most hype, it's got to be Ludwig.
That's not what I would have gone with, but that I can respect that.
What would you say, Xfinity Center?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would have
Yeah.
gone with that, but it's a fair pick.
Now you know I can take that. So
Yeah,
all right, so
it's
let's
a
hear
fair
it.
point. I'm going to go with back to the Navy well. In this one, I'm going to go I think that this is one of the more elite stadiums in all of college baseball. I'm going to go with Navy's baseball stadium. It overlooks the water in Annapolis beautifully.
Good pick.
And I really just think that, I'm a baseball guy, and I just think the idea of hitting a home run into the water right on the state's capital is something that I would love to do. So I'm going to go with Navy's baseball stadium. Mike, what do you got?
I mean, if we're playing for the graphic now, I think athlete, I'm going to get Maryland off the board because that might be the hardest one to go now. So I'm going to take Jameer Young.
Oh, Jameer Young.
I think that
so
is-
does that say Jameer Young's the best athlete at Maryland?
Well, I mean, Matt Shaw is.
It was
probably
between
gonna be. It was
those
between
two.
him and Jameer Young, but I think Jameer Young plays more to the graphic. So.
Plays more to the audience. Yeah.
And then I think I'm gonna go coach here because I don't know how niche Brendan's gone, but
Coach is the one I didn't go niche on, so
No.
I'm screwed.
I'm gonna take the head coach of Salisbury football, Sherman Wood.
Wow.
He is the program's all-time winningest coach, 175 wins, and he's had 18 consecutive postseason appearances since 2004, plus 9 conference championships. So this guy knows how to win, has a great program up at Salisbury near the coast.
Tell us about Salisbury. So where is that exactly in Maryland? Can you talk to us about that?
It's about like an hour, 30 minutes away from Ocean City a little bit.
Okay.
So it's near the beach. It's more on the eastern shore side of Maryland.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good picks, Mike. I really respect both of those. Now I'm going to get my jersey off the board, and I'm going to go with the powder blue John Hopkins lacrosse jerseys.
Good pick.
Powder blue is an elite color, and on the lacrosse it just looks great when they have the different shades, and you got like the helmets just go so good with the jerseys with the eagle helmet. So John Hopkins lacrosse jerseys is my pick. Brendan, with your third and then fourth pick.
I'm gonna go logo here. I don't think anybody's taken a
No
logo
logos.
yet.
No logos.
I guess Maryland is still on the board. I'm not gonna take Maryland though because that's boring. I am going to take the Navy logo of the goat. The
Oh,
jumping
that's a
goat.
good pick. That's a good pick. So not the N, just the goat. Yeah.
Yeah, the jumping goat. It's a cool one. I
It's a
fancy
good
it.
pick. That's a good pick.
And then player, this is the one I went crazy on. Okay. Saying you didn't do a Salisbury player, did you?
I did not know.
No. Okay, so Salisbury Field Hockey, they went 18-1 this year, which is a solid season. But I'm looking specifically to the field hockey team's goalie, Mackenzie Peacock. She only allowed 13 goals all
name.
season.
Wow.
In 19 games. The team ended up losing in the NCAA tournament along the line. Salisbury outscored the opponents 76-13 with help from Mackenzie. Just to give a little bit of context, maybe Mike can help me out here a little bit. Maryland goalkeeping let up 22 goals in 16 games, so 13 goals in 19 games. That's some incredible goalkeeping.
That is very good. Maryland field hockey struggled with goalkeeping the whole season. They shuffle through two different goalies.
Maybe we should get Peacock.
Maybe they should try to get her through the transfer portal.
Yeah,
Who
the
knows?
transfer portal is always available. That's a very good pick. All right, I'm gonna get my logo off the board, and I'm gonna go with something that's true to my heart, and I'm gonna get the UMBC Retrievers. Having a dog as a logo is pretty cool, and their mascot is elite. So I will be going with the Retrievers as my logo. Mike, give us your final two picks.
So now I have a logo and a stadium left. Stadium's going to be the hard one. But for logo, I'm going to take the Towson Tigers. I don't know if you guys know what this logo looks like. Let me pull this up real quick.
Well, we're not a visual podcast.
Actually, no, we're not a visual podcast, so it doesn't matter. And then for stadium, I was trying to see if anybody played at MT and Bank Stadium. I could not find that, so I'm just going to take the...
that would have been crazy. I'm really glad you didn't do that. That's a little bit of a BS move, in my opinion.
What do you mean?
Anyway, you're not taking it. Keep it going.
I'm just gonna take the Towson basketball stadium.
Oh, so back-to-back Towson picks.
It's a solid little
Wow.
arena there.
Back-to-back Towsons. Okay, so for players so far, Maryland and who'd you take, Brendan? What it was the goalie, but what university? Salisbury. Okay, so that leaves me with a couple of different options. What I'm gonna go with is this is a tough one because you're looking at like a lot of different, options. If we could go past players, man, there's some good ones that I had in mind, but we can't do that. So with my pick, I will be taking Chloe Dotz, who is a track athlete at Johns Hopkins.
Crazy. That's an insane.
Chloe set 2 personal records this past week when she ran a 12.2 finish in the 100-meter dash.
What meet was this?
It was in the Williamsburg meet. She ran a 12.2 finish. Brennan, how good is that in 100 meters?
Solid.
Okay. And then again, she set a 23.87 in the 200 meter. That I feel like is very good.
28?
No, 24.7.
It's okay.
Oh, okay.
I'll give her a fine. That's pretty good.
So I will be going with Chloe Dot as my athlete.
This is like a crazy move. I'm not really proud of this. I don't have another coach, and so this is an assist from Mike. Maybe you can give him a 6th coach. I don't know, but just shout somebody else out. Mike, say this guy's name.
I don't know how to say it.
Okay, I'll say it. Paul Kostakopoulos. He's the head baseball coach at Navy. I hope it's right.
Greek
in his 18th season, every season he's won 30 or more games.
10 seasons he has.
Okay, let's try again. In 10 of his seasons, he's won 30 or more games. Second most winning coach in Navy baseball history. So
that's it.
Shout out Kostakopoulos.
Yeah, solid pick, solid ending. I think the strongest pick overall was Mike getting the Salisbury coach. That was pretty elite. But I really like my draft, actually. I think the John Hopkins powder blue unis, I think everybody had good unis. I'd say me and Brennan's are probably the best two. I like those unis, Mike, but with the 1-1, that was a little bit of a reach, I think.
You don't think those are like...
They're good, but...
I wanted the astronaut unis bad.
They've had some better ones.
That was number 1 on your board?
Yeah, on the big board, Brendan had it. So that was good. Mike, what did you think in terms of the draft? How do you think it played out? Just give us some quick thoughts.
I like the nicheness of it. I think we got to keep doing the nicheness. That was
I love
very good.
It's so fun.
Yeah,
I think it was a little bit late. We'll get it down. Next week we're gonna have something crazy niche and it'll be fun. We'll figure it out.
So that'll be the draft for this week. Everyone go vote on the Twitter, on all of our Instagrams. We post it, so you can vote on that. Give us feedback. Give us comments on who you think took home the crown this week. And with that, we will wrap up with our final segment of the week. It's the Brendan Weissel Show. He's going to be bringing in a random, obscure Maryland athlete of the past who somehow had the most crazy life story you'll ever find. Our investigative journalist, our very own Brendan Weissel. Take it away.
Last week was outstanding. I don't think I'll be able to match it, but I'll give you guys a double because 2 sports is always greater than 1. Ever heard of Tom Brown? Anybody?
have
Thomas
not.
William Brown, born December 12th, 1940. No
Never
one knows
heard of
Tom
him.
Brown.
Let's hear about him.
Tom Brown went to the University of Maryland, but it's more important what he did after the University of Maryland. At Maryland, he was at baseball and football on both teams, and he kind of had some incredible statistics when he was on the football team. In 1962, he scored 6 touchdowns,
Oh, there we go.
intercepted 6 passes.
Oh,
That's crazy.
What a double doozer.
He caught 47 passes as well. It's something you really wouldn't see anymore, someone being that dominant. I mean, 6 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and doing it on both sides of the ball with less games.
Yeah.
It's a notable statistic. And then after, in the professional field, he played for the Washington Senators, who are now the Texas Rangers, in 1963. Switch hitter, didn't have the greatest season, but hell, he made the MLB.
That's pretty incredible.
And then in 1964, he signed with the Green Bay Packers. Played there from 1964 to 1968. Won Super Bowl I and Super Bowl II. Pretty crazy.
That's wild.
And then he played for the Washington football team, Commanders, in 1969. Didn't have an incredibly successful career in baseball. Batting average 147, hit 1 home
That's
run.
not great.
4 runs batted in. But what you have to know is that he then went from that, played a year in Major League Baseball, and went to the NFL. Was selected 28th in the NFL draft. It's just crazy. You could play a season of baseball and then go to the NFL.
Yeah, that's wild. That's another good one. I mean, the 2 sport athletes that play professionally, that could never happen anymore. It's crazy that does it. So another great terrific terp from B. Another good episode from the fellas. You can check us out. Be sure to tune in for the Matt Shaw interview. They will be playing this weekend, so keep a lookout on what he does, and keep a lookout on our socials. You can find this podcast anywhere you get it, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. It'll be on Twitter at our socials under the shell on Instagram and Twitter. For once again, Brendan Weissel, Michael Howes, and myself, Sam Jane, signing off. Have a happy Passover, a great Easter, and that is it.
See ya.